Governor, I hope you had a good St. Patrick's Day.
It was.
When you came before the committee in November, I asked you about your commitment to improving payment accuracy. As you know, my office has heard from beneficiaries who have received letters saying they must pay back thousands, or in some cases tens of thousands of dollars to the government. I've been pleased to see your demonstrated commitment to addressing overpayment inequities, but there's more work to be done. This issue spans from a challenging appeals process, low staffing that leads to beneficiaries receiving bills that date back 30 years, and challenges around payroll data. How will the president's budget help address this multifaceted problem that leads to overpayments?
Yes, Senator, thank you for your question, and thank you for urging us forward to do even more. The things that I announced today about moving away from the 100% intercept, on the default position, shifting of the burden, all of those things will make a difference. There's still other things that we need to untangle and figure out with regard to administrative finality and the like. But you kind of put your finger on one of the problems, and it's this. We have not seen more citizens being assessed overpayments, but we have seen the time it takes to assess the overpayment grow, and therefore the debt itself grow because of the shortage of staff and the extra length of time it takes before we discover it or before we're able to contact the person and make arrangements.
And that's simply not fair.
Pardon?
That's simply not fair.
What's not fair? That we should have staffing that it should take us that long?
That the time frame that it took to ultimately make those determinations have added to a cost that otherwise would not have existed.
That's true. It's not fair. People have paid for their customer service. It comes out of the same trust fund it always has, back when it was 1.2%. And so you ask, what would the president's budget do for us on that? It would allow us to restore many of the staff losses that will allow us to narrow that amount of time. So as I said before, 75% of the debts in the Title II OASDI are $5,000 or less. 92% of people get a hold of us, but in an agency this big, if you're harming 8% of the people, that's a lot of people.
Well, I look forward to your work in this and to hearing as you go along if there are other things that need to be done. I'd like to know. I'm sure members of the committee would.
Thank you, Senator.
A CBO report from last month has yet again proven that certain right-wing voices claiming that immigrants are so-called takers who drain our nation's resources are blatantly wrong. Here are a few excerpts from the report. Immigrants will grow the entire U.S. labor force by an extra 5.2 million workers over the next 10 years. Over the next 10 years, our GDP will be about $7 trillion larger, and our federal tax revenues $1 trillion greater than they would otherwise be without these immigrants. The report confirms that America's prosperity and financial security depends upon the enormous contributions of hardworking immigrants. And as more and more Americans retire, new immigrants eager for work opportunities will help fund our Social Security system for all Americans. And so even though undocumented immigrant workers contribute billions into our Social Security system to keep it solvent for U.S. citizens, they do not receive a single dime in benefits from it. So do you agree with the CBO's findings that immigrant workers continue to be essential to keeping our Social Security funds solvent?
I sure do, Senator.
Okay. And that's a point that often goes unreported in a way that I think is part of the consideration that we should have. Finally, when applying for SSDI or SSI disability benefits, individuals report that they have spent years with little or no income working through the system, only to see their application rejected. They also describe dehumanizing, extensive, and highly confusing paperwork. And a recent report from the Center for American Progress notes that only 33% of applicants for SSDI and 32% of applicants for disability benefits with SSI were awarded benefits at any time in the process, largely due to extreme administrative burdens and delays. What can you do as a commissioner to reduce the red tape and extreme barriers that individuals with disabilities face when they are trying to collect the benefits to which they are entitled?
Yes, sir. There's rarely a day that goes by when we are are not wrestling with the complexities of this program, both in disability determinations and especially in SSI. The supplemental security income is about 40% of our 4% of our benefit outlays, but it's about 40% of our administrative overhead. This program seems to get in its own way. In other words, while it purports to be a program of last resort for the poorest of people, it forces the poorest of people to jump through hoops, stand on their head, and gargle peanut butter in order to qualify for it. So there are things we can do to simplify SSI, and some of those things are underway. The movement to electronic signatures in the agency it can play is part of that. But the larger problem is this. It is a very staff-intensive program to administer, and it is an income-based program, and our staffing levels are at a 27-year low. So in addition to being a complex program, it's also facing the same sort of understaffing challenges that the whole agency is facing.
I
Thank you.
I thank my colleague, Senator Grassley.
Yeah,